All right, this is chapter 2. We're going to talk about your design kit tools, which most of you have already gotten your tool kits, and we're going to talk a little bit about the stuff that's in it. I know this chapter 2 talks a lot about pencils, and the different weights and the different leads. I'm more of a pen drawer. I like drawing pen on Mylar or pen on paper. Mylar is not used as much. Mylar was like a film medium that was real easy to draw on, but pretty much now it's pen on Vellum. And it's pretty easy to do. Everybody kind of freaks out when we start talking about using pen on paper because you can't erase it. But you do have a blue, it should be a blue eraser in your toolkit, which will help fade that down. But there's always little tricks and stuff that I will show you on how to correct a mistake on a drawing. But this is chapter 2, tools. Our objectives is learn the drafting tools and materials used to draw plan drawings. Again, bird's eye view. We'll understand the basic tools required for the beginning design student, and then we'll learn tips and techniques for using the drafting tools. All right, first of all, your drawing surface, the criteria for it, it needs to be smooth. This green mat that's on your desk right now, that's a smooth surface. I know some of the office supply stores actually sells like portable design tables. Those are perfect to use as well. I've had students in the past buy sheets of plywood, cut it in half, sand it down, and make their own drafting table. Because you do have to have that straight edge, and you need the 90-degree corners. And so this is a good example of everything that you would need. Doesn't need to be this big, you know. Like I said, students have gone in together and bought a 4x8 sheet of plywood and cut it in half and made drafting tables from it. But if not, you know, you guys will have plenty of table time in here to complete your projects. And adjustable height and angle is good. My preferred method to drawing is standing up behind the table and drawing like this. If you wanted to sit down, you're able to lift the tables up by twisting it. Just the little knobs on the side actually kind of lock it down, but you can lift it up and twist the sides. And if you wanted to sit at the chair, and it'll actually raise all the way up. Bad thing about this though is your Tsquare likes to slide off. Sometimes in offices you'll see where they have like a slide guide. It's a cable that runs down and they've got the whole Tsquare running down the side, or a parallel bar. But I love the Tsquare, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. The bad thing is, if you raise it all the way up, this thing can like slide off. But this is like the best thing in the world. Your paper, tracing paper, or trash. We call it trash paper, tracing paper, bum wad, all kinds of names for it. Real transparent, almost like wax paper that you use like in cooking almost. But we go through this like it's nothing. It's real inexpensive. And the school, we will buy that for you, and we'll use a ton of that. We've got it in different, you know, it comes in the 24-inch, 36-inch rolls, but this is my favorite because I can carry it around. So this, and what other tool is our best tool in the whole wide world? Pintail sign pen, exactly. My two favorites. We are problem solvers for people's landscapes, and we use the Pintail sign pen or a Sharpie and trash paper more than anything. The trash paper, it's low quality. It can be white, yellow, or buff, depending on what color you like. That buff is like a light tan, and then there is that yellow stuff. but I like the white because I'm drawing over white paper. 12 to 36 inch wide, you sketch your ideas. It's generally used as an overlay. Now, what we'll do in this class, since we're focusing more on residential design, when we get our base maps complete, we'll take the larger trash paper, lay over our base map, and start doing like site inventory and analysis. Start doing concept bubble diagrams instead of doing another complete drawing. It's okay to use the trash paper in the design process to help you do it, because you may or may not want to show your clients your bubble diagrams. You may want to go to the next step in the next visit with them with like a preliminary. And it just depends on what. One, if they're paying you for all that and paying you for the graphics. Vellum, it's high quality, it's translucent. Pencil use, mostly. Pen does not erase well, but you get used to it. This is vellum. Just feel it. It's almost like a little wax to it as well. But this is what we'll use every single day in here. It's vellum. This is my favorite size. Why? Easy to work with. I can walk around somebody's yard like this instead of these big plans, and we can sit at the kitchen table easy with it. But again, it depends on the size of the project. Depends on the size of the yard. But this is what we call vellum. Whoops, sorry. So vellum and trash paper are what we'll use most. I don't even know if I've got a sheet of Mylar. When I was in school, that's all we used was Mylar. Yeah, I do. I'll tell you a quick thing about this. Now, this is Mylar, plastic. Perfect for the old blueprint machines. Y'all remember seeing blueprints where the paper was actually blue and the lines were white? And then they come out with the blue lines and the white paper. But when we did prints in college, everything was through an ammonium-based blueprint machine. When we cranked that up, you could smell it. The ammonium would fill the room, and you got a good little buzz. And then they moved to black line paper. We used black line for our rendered or our colored drawings, and then used the blue line, which is a little bit cheaper. Stuff's $5 a sheet. This is $5 right here. So kind of expensive, right? My two professors at A&T, John Robinson, God rest his soul, he passed away this summer, was a real inspiration to me. And then Perry Howard. Both went to LSU around the same time, and they both went to Harvard School of Landscape Architecture. I love those guys to death. They said they were so poor going to Harvard that they bought one sheet of Mylar and erased it and used it the whole 2 years they were getting their master's degree. And he said, we'd stay up all night. He said the erasers were so cheap. And that was when Mylar first come out, so it may have been $30 a sheet back then. But he said they erased it because they could get the erasers for nothing hardly. And so they'd draw their base map, go run their blueprints, erase it, and then do the next drawings they had to do for the project. And then they had everything in the blueprints. So neat little story, but now I've lost my clicker. But the three types of mediums. That was the Mylar we saw. It is high quality, heavier than vellum, long lasting, expensive, usually used for ink. You can use pencil on it, but that pencil's going to smear. Ink will smear if you don't let it dry. And then grid paper can be used to draw to scale. I've never really drawn anything on grid paper. I really haven't. I mean, we went straight to vellum and Mylar. I have seen landscape architects use packaging paper, the brown paper, which is really, really cool because they'll lay that out, and like with a light table, which we have up here, which is easy for tracing, and then, you know, one day, make me clean this up, guys. Well, it may not be, yeah, there it comes. But you see the light coming up? You can actually lay a drawing on it and trace. And what they'd do is take that brown packaging paper and trace their base plan, and then they would color it with colored pencils. And it looked amazing. So there's all kinds of ways to present your work. That's a lot of people get into design because they're artists and they love to draw, and this is one way that they can have that as a career. I mean, what else? What other job pays you to color, right? Bond paper, standard weight paper. It's like copy paper. It's used for copying designs rather than drawing. So it's really like your typing paper, or what we print out of the printer in there. If you go to Kinko's, FedEx, or you go to a blueprint store, they're going to copy your drawings instead of print them with that ammonium based. It's going to be like a photocopy of it. And it's harder to photocopy that Mylar. So pretty much everybody is drawing on Vellum, or they're plotting out from AutoCAD on their Vellum, and then they're going and getting copies made. Carrying tube. I don't know if I've got mine up here or not, but guys, you can make it out of PVC pipe. What happens in the winter and stuff around here? We're drawing, you guys leave for the day, you're taking your drawings home, you go outside, and these big raindrops hit it. That hits that ink, it just smears it all over the place. So like a PVC pipe, cut it in half, get 2 little end caps, you know, you've got maybe $2 or $3 in it. It protects your drawings. Protects it from the rain, sunlight, and it organizes it. And when you are rolling up your drawings, always lay your drawing side down and roll up, so you can always see drawings, because when you roll it back out, it automatically goes flat. You don't have to worry about the sides folding up. Plus, what do we have like right here? The name of the project. You know what it is. If you've got them stacked up somewhere in a box, you can look, oh, yep, there's the Jones project, the Smith project. And then when you pull it back out, you roll it up, it lays flat automatically. You know, if you did it the other way, these ends are going to keep curling up, and then you're going to have to keep forcing it down. Prints. They used to be blueprints. That's what I talked about just a minute ago. And I can almost bet that there's some landscape architects out there that are going back to blueprints for presentation graphics, just because they're going back to that traditional way, which I think is cool. But reprographers have replaced the blueprinters, which were called the zero graphics. Blueprinting companies can print on Mylar or Vellum. So if you draw a base map, they can actually copy it to another piece of Vellum or Mylar for you. Bond copies can be made at a copy store. Like if you needed to run into FedEx, Kinko's, we used to go to Kinko's at 2 o'clock in the morning when I was at A&T, having to copy stuff to get it colored for class at 8 o'clock. We'd draw all day and then have to run over to Kinko's there on UNCG's campus and make our copies if we needed to, because we could have ran out of blueprint stuff. And a lot of times the instructors would lock that room up. We didn't have access to it all the time. And before getting expensive copies, always run a test print. because photocopying a 24 by 36 is going to cost you a couple bucks. But we may or may not get to that point here. But we will next semester when we start coloring. Tape or tape dots, they should be in your little design bag. It's a little box right there. But it's a little bitty tape that's not too sticky. So when you tape down the corners, when you lay it out and get it squared up, you'll put a little piece of tape at each corner. And be careful, even though it isn't that sticky, but you want to peel away from it with your fingernail so you don't tear the corners of your drawing. Tsquare, used to make horizontal or vertical lines. This is my Tsquare. I've had this thing since, it's got my name on it. I've had this since 1994, 95. My personal one. This was given to me by Dr. Ware. She was my first year design student at A&T, not student, my professor, and then she taught our senior design class. She teaches now in Australia at the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. She is the department chair there. So she gave me this before she left. So don't use it. It's mine. But we have a ton of them back here. And this is where we keep them. We have the wooden ones, and then we have the clear plastic one, guys. So whenever we start drawing, you'll just come back here and grab a Tsquare. And that is basically goes on the side and moves up and down, draws your horizontal lines, slide down horizontal, and that's how we do it. Drawing your vertical lines, you keep your Tsquare there, and we take a triangle and we move it back and forth. So you can do all kinds of stuff. Bad thing about this one, it's not all the way across. Those are longer and they stop about right here, which is all you need. But to draw a vertical line, slide it around, draw a vertical line, across here, slide it up. You've just drawn a four-cornered house. So very easy. The triangles in your design kit are not beveled. So that's why I bought a ton back there. Feel this with your fingernail and tell me what you think that beveled edge is for. It keeps your pins from bleeding. And when I say bleeding, when you take and you draw and you stop and you don't pull up fast enough, it's going to bleed a little bit right there. And you're going to see a perfect straight line, and then it's going to look like a little needle head or pin head at the end of it. That beveled edge helps with that, and it also helps from it from bleeding underneath. Because a lot of times people put too much pressure and they hold it and they get to the end and they stop and it bleeds. But you'll feel, I mean, it's just a little bevel on all sides. The triangles, that's what's going around now. You have a 45-45 and a 30-60. The 45-45 is going around now. This is a 30-60. You'll use both. Lead. Now, how many pencils are in your design kit? Has anybody opened them up and look? And how many leads come with it? There's 3 pencils? How many leads? Three of each. So there's probably 9. Gotcha. So you should have a 5, 7, and a 9 size. Then H, HB, 4H, 2H. It's 4. Use them. It's okay to draw in pencil. You're never going to see me draw in pencil though, because I have years of experience. Confidence. I don't mess up when it comes to drawing. Kidding. I do. And I'll show you tricks of the trade to correct it, because a lot of people, they're like, my ink just bled all over the place. How do I fix it? There's little things to do it. You ever seen those little whiteout tapes? Perfect, since we're drawing on vellum. You can't use it on Mylar, but definitely if you make a mistake on vellum, the little white tape works perfect. But lead it comes in degrees of softness and hardness. H lead, very hard. The number and an H, the higher the number, the harder the lead. You're going to use that for thin light lines, which would be like a property line. Probably one of the thinnest things you'll draw around the property. And they're going to be dashed as well. Does not smudge as much because it's hard. 4H we would use as guidelines. So if you need something to really trace. But is there a blue pencil in your design kit that you sharpen with a pencil sharpener? Should be called non-photo. Yep, non-photo. That's what I want you to use for guidelines. Because you could write all over your vellum and then go get it photocopied. You're not going to see those blue lines. You'll only see what you draw in the regular lead. 2H for drawing details. B lead, it's softer with thicker, darker lines. The higher the number, the softer the lead. Yes, sir.
What's the thing on triangles? I didn't get to type it all down.
I mean, there's 45-45 and then 30-60. The one that we passed around has that beveled edge to prevent it from bleeding out so much, your pens. And it helps prevent the pencils from smudging bad too. The bad thing about drawing with pencil, well, mechanical is not so bad, but in the old days, we used to draw with pencils that we had to stick in a sharpener, or we had a lead sharpener. We had a lead holder, which was old school. And when my grandmother passed away, well, that's been several years ago, we were going through her stuff, we found my grandfather's old design kit, and they were all like lead holders and stuff. My grandfather was a machinist. He drew plans like nuts and bolts and stuff. He worked for Reynolds, and so they got to draw the stuff that needed to be made in the machine shop. But no, that's a mechanical pencil. Yeah, well, these are good pencils.
We're going to have to do a tutorial on how to load those.
Yes, yeah.
That is not like a normal machine.
Got. And what we had the old lead holders. Like the lead was almost, well, I wouldn't say.
The ones that used to be attached to like a protractor almost.
Kind of, sort of. But you could push a button and the whole lead would fall out. And it was thick. I mean, like thick lead. But you could only draw a little bit and then you'd have to sharpen it. Then finish drawing. Because when you sharpened it to a point and you drew, what happened? You'd have a real thin line, and then as the lead went down, it got thicker. So you had to be careful with that. That's why I like pen. I will require that you draw your borders around your paper with the Pentel sign pen. And we will practice that. Just like you're going to get tired of writing the alphabet in architectural lettering. And then you're going to notice, well, if you're like me, I hardly write cursive anymore. I always write print. But I'm fast at it. And they're not even teaching cursive writing in schools anymore. And that bothers me because I took my little girls to get their military ID, and the guy at the desk was like, all right, here girls, you need to sign your name. And they're like printing it. I'm like, really? They're like, Dad, we don't know how to write cursive. I'm like, you're in high school. So, but that's the way it is.
What did they do? Did they let them print it?
They let them print it. And I asked them, I said, what are y'all doing with the soldiers, new soldiers coming in? They're like, well, now everything is like, what is it? Not photometric. They sign with their thumbprint. So they don't have to sign their name on their enlistment contract. It's a thumbprint. because the Army knows that it's not being taught in school anymore. It's just like cell phones are used in basic training now. What do you think about that, Chief?
I don't get it. I don't know if I can learn all the new technology or not now. But
What?
that means the contract's probably done on the computer.
Mm-hmm. Well, the last time I was at Fort Jackson, the drill instructors were outside, and they walked up to the chow hall, and he's like, "All right, guys, y'all can stop and go ahead and take out your cell phones. You got a few minutes." Like, holy cow! That never happened with us. Never happened. Yes.
Is it on some bases they won't let you use your cell phones because of GPS tracking apps will give away like bases and stuff?
It's when you go to Fort Bragg, the GPS is, you can try to use it, but it's garbled. They got it fixed where it doesn't work.
Okay.
It doesn't, I drove down to Fort Rucker last September or October to promote somebody, and I was trying to find the where you stay on base, and
Yeah.
the GPS was sending me around and around. I said, "Oh yeah, it
It's-
doesn't work on base.
The signal was scrambled.
No directions."
With your B-lead, it's heavyweight lines. It will smudge because it's soft, and is used for shadows and contrast. But I like shadow. I like using, what's the number one color that you see in the landscape? Yes. Purple. Dr. Ware, she taught us that in design theory. Subconsciously, you see it, but consciously, you really don't. Purple is the most abundant color in the landscape. I guess when you mix the sky with the concrete and everything else out there, purple stands out. Subconscious.
Really noticed that? I mean, I tried to visualize it last night watching it.
It's just hard to say because you automatically think green.
Most flowers, many flowers are purple.
Yeah, yep. But that's why we use purple for shadows. You'll see a lot of landscape architects and designers use purple for shadowing their plants. Sometimes can be used for general drawings. That's the HB. 2B is sometimes used but smudges easilier. Common used leads would be 4H, 2H, H, HB, sometimes 2B. What's HB? You should all be familiar with HB lead. It's like your number 2 American Standard or Ticonderoga pencil.
Well, why did you give us just 4 of those?
Huh?
These are all HP.
Those are all HB because you got 0.3, 0.5, 0.7, 0.9, the millimeter of the lead.
Well, yeah, 4H, 2H. How do you, and for this class, are you saying just use HB?
No, I'm just saying HB is like every student like is just like this. That's an HB pencil. That's the most common lead like worldwide. You know, just for taking notes and stuff. But no, this stuff right here, you've got different lead sizes with your HB.
They're all HP.
Yeah, because one of them is probably 0.5, 0.7, and 0.9, the millimeter, the thickness. Because when it comes to drawing the plans, what's the thickest line on a plan? Would be the outline of the house. Then the second thickest line would be like your driveways. The thinnest line is going to be your property lines. So that's why we have 3, 5, 7, 9 millimeter size pencils. And then depending on what you are drawing, would you use 4H, 2H, HB? See where I'm going?
But for this class, we're just using HP.
No. We'll use them all. No, I just
Well, you
said
put them in as kit. I was wondering, like.
no. I mean, we'll use them all. Yeah. Y'all will. But you'll see me use pen. And trust me, y'all want the pencil probably first because it's very easily erased. Because it's kind of, I'm not going to be like my professors. They're like, leave your drawings out, like your drawings, no trash on it. And they get a red Pentel sign pen and they're like, this sucks. You need to start over. Where have you been? literally would have people in tears. Literally would have people in tears. They're like, oh my gosh, I am that bad. And at the end of the sophomore year, we had sophomore review. If we didn't pass sophomore review, guess what we had to do? Change majors, because you were kicked out of the program. Yeah. They're like, yeah, we have horticulture, we have surveying, we have these other programs that you're in, but you're not cut out to be a landscape architect. And we sweated bullets with that. And that's why they graduated, or still graduate, 4 or 5 students each year. When in the freshman class, there starts out 25 or 30. But usually freshman studio weeds them out. They're like, whoa, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Because literally we stayed up all night drawing. I lived in Poptown, commuted, and then we come up with the idea of having sleeping bags in the studio. Because they gave us a key to the building. It's just certain rooms were locked. And we had a refrigerator, we had a microwave, and we went and took sponge baths in the sink. Because there was nights that we could not leave. I mean, it was that bad. And once we figured out, if we just stayed here, we actually got stuff done. Because there was no way to leave and be able to go and work and do something. I wanted to play baseball at A&T. I was good enough to play college baseball. I asked my professor about it. They just laughed. They're like, well, if you want to go study history, you can play baseball here. But if you're gonna become a landscape architect, no, you cannot play sports here. So, and they were absolutely right. There was not enough time. There wasn't enough time to date. There wasn't enough time to do any of that stuff. It was draw, draw, draw. And yes, there was times I wanted to say, forget this. But it went from my dad saying, no, son, stick it out, stick it out, stick it out. You'll get this. 3 years goes by fast. 3 years go. And it did. At the end of it, you're like, wow, where did 3 years go? Am I scaring y'all? We're only going to do about half that work. Okay? I do that anyway now still. But then there's lead type, you have graphite, and then plastic, which is used on Mylar. That graphite's like your wooden pencils, your American pencil. And then that plastic, it breaks easy. Yeah, we have the drawing pencils. Drawing pencils would be the ones that you sharpen in a pencil sharpener. Because you can buy those pencils. We've got mechanicals, but you can buy them in wooden pencil. A lead holder's what I talked about, the old school. And then you guys have got the mechanical pencils. Erasers. Plastic white erasers can be washed as lead builds up on them to prevent smudging. Just rub them off, take a little water and get it. A stick eraser, that's kind of like a pencil. You know, it's got that tube eraser in it. And then an eraser shield. It's a little, looks like a credit card in your design kit with all these little cutouts in it. That's what you lay over your lines and take the eraser and erase it, and it prevents from erasing the whole thing. So if you got a line too wide on one end or your borders crossed a little bit, you just take your eraser shield and make it disappear. Pretty cool. Templates, your circle templates. There should be probably 2 of them in your design kit. It's just a big plastic, thin thing that's got all these circles cut out in it. It measures diameters used to draw various size circles. It's quick and to scale. And once we read a scale, we'll be able to say, hey, we're going to build a 30-foot, we need a 30-foot diameter tree in quarter scale or 8th scale. 10 scale, we'll be able to lay our scales on the circle template and find it, and then place it on the drawing and draw that tree. Compass, used for drawing larger circles. Adjust the distance between the point and the lead. Most of y'all know how to use a compass. You know, that's taught in grade school, but we very rarely use it. Very rarely. maybe if you're drawing in quarter scale, but most of your plans are going to be probably 8th or 10 scale in this class. Scales. Ruler with units that represent feet. We have an architect and an engineer. The architect is units of an inch. Example, a quarter of an inch equals a foot. So I always tell people, everybody ever play with like model cars, you know, and how things are scaled? Like it's at a certain scale. Well, that means if it's at 25 scale, that it's actually 25 times smaller in that model. But if you blew it up 25 times, it would equal the big car. In our line of profession, we're going to use 1/8 and quarter scale on the architect. Engineer, we're going to use 10 and 20. But the engineer's units of increments in an inch, how many tick marks per inch? 10 scale has 10 increments in an inch, so 1 inch equals 10 feet. So 20 scale, what's 1 inch in 20 scale? 20 feet. So you see where we're going? And when it comes to the engineer scale, if you're having issues with it, you could literally count out each tick to get the number of feet. So in 1 inch on the 10 scale, there's actually 10 ticks. So you've had construction, Laura. You're in it now, right, Miss Moser? You're in construction now? Yeah. Y'all had it.
I learned that in basic landscape.
Techniques. You've had construction. Have you had it? Yeah. You've had construction. So it's real simple. You know, once you get the hang of it, you've got it. But it's a skill. If you don't use it, you do lose it, just like plant material. All right. Ames lettering guide. I don't even know if it's in there. It's another little clear plastic credit card looking thing.
No, it's not.
No, that's the eraser shield.
Just had them alive.
I may have told them to take it out. I probably did because we just won't use it. But what it does is help you with lettering, drawing the guidelines for lettering. But it's so easy to do it with Tsquare triangle and that blue non-copy pen. But the Ames lettering guide used with a Tsquare to create the guidelines, top and bottom guidelines, and sometimes a midline. You have a dry cleaning bag. It may or may not be in there. Looks like a little hacky sack. It may or may not be in there. But what you do is you just take it and you throw it and just let all that little eraser dust get on your drawing, and it helps prevent smudging with pencil. And then a brush, it just kind of removes that eraser or dry cleaning bag dust off your drawing when you're finished. Other tools would be a protractor, measure and draw angles accurately. We will use a protractor very extensively when it comes to drawing property lines, because we're going to read a line from north, 20-degree angles in a westerly position, 142 feet long. That's how we get our angle, and we can draw that property line. And you have flex curves, which is like a little snake thing right here, which is good for drawing shrub beds. You mold it to how you want it, and then draw trace in it. And then the French curves are the pre-made ones right here, and good for drawing shrub beds and pretty cool stuff like that. And that wraps up your tools lecture we got some time to spare, so we can do a little bit of drawing.